The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello, everyone. It's either, depending on what time zone you're in, it's either good morning or good afternoon or good day to you all. Thank you for joining us today for this informational session on being a resident assistant 101. My name is Lori Sabata. I am going to lead the webinar today as we kind of walk through the content and go through some of the administrative functions in the course, and then we'll have some time to answer some questions at the end. I'm also joined by my colleague, Spencer Giese. Welcome, Spencer.
Hi, everyone. I'm Spencer Giese. I'm a research and education specialist at ACUI, and I'm also about a 10-year practitioner in residence life. Happy to chat with you about ways to help implement RA 101 into your training for your student staff members, whether that be using that in the spring, the fall, during time that they're not on campus. We've got lots of options and ways to make that work with what you do on your campuses.
Great. Thanks, Spencer. So we're going to spend some time today, as I said, just kind of walking through. I want to give you a chance to, I'm going to give sort of an overview of the course. I want to give you a chance to kind of see some of the content that's in the modules. There's a lot of content. And then go over how kind of, the course is implemented and how we have some functionality built in for administrators to go in and assist their student staff as they go through the course. So at the end of that time, or actually really any time, you should just go ahead and, if you're not familiar with GoToMeeting, just go ahead and take a look at your control panel. You should find a box there. It should either say question or chat. One of those two things, and just kind of pull that up and have that handy, because if you have any questions, just go ahead and type them in. We'll take time at the end. Sometimes I kind of stop in the middle too and just sort of take a look at the questions and sort of address those as we're going, especially if it's a point that I can provide some clarification on. So we'll take care of it that way. I know we have a large number of sites logged in our listening audience today. I do want to make sure, now that I've gotten this far, that you can actually, all is well on your end. Technically, like you can hear my voice and you can see my screen. So while your attention is, we were just talking about that control panel. If you look on there, you should find a sort of like a cartoon hand. If you could click that, that kind of lets me know that you can see my screen. You should be seeing the screen that's got a listing of the course authors there, and hearing my voice, and I'm seeing raised hands. So looks like all is well on your end. So thank you so much for doing that. Appreciate it. All right, I'm going to jump right into it. So this is being a resident assistant 101 was sort of an idea that came up where we a lot of our members wanted a course that were pre-made modules that you could have online, that you could just sort of implement online. As you may know, creating online course content takes a lot of time and effort. And so with the help of our course authors, as you see listed here, we were actually able to put this course together. And this is actually our third iteration of this course. I think we've put there's about 121 different organizations that have purchased this course and have used it on site. And we've put over, this is just last year, I'm not sure the total number, 3,500 RAs or student staff through the course. So we're really happy about that, and just really thankful to the effort and time that these member volunteers put in to pull this course together for us. So hats off to them.
One thing I would add in, as we go through this course, we're going to use the term resident advisor for those student staff members that are living in your residence halls and your on-campus dwellings. That's a universal term we use throughout. We also have a disclaimer on that in the beginning of this course. So while you may call them something else on your campus, maybe a community advisor, a peer mentor, or whatever that is, this course is really referring to those student staff members that are on your college campuses, residing in your living spaces.
Yep, that's a good point, Spencer. Thank you.
And Lori, if we could go back to that PowerPoint slide. Right now I'm seeing, looks like program sessions for ACE, so we can just pop that back up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me do that. Hold on. That fix it?
Yeah, there we go. Now I can see course navigation.
Okay, good. Thank you. I've got 3 screens here, so sometimes I lose track of what's on which screen, so appreciate that. All right, so you should be seeing, so what I wanted to do is switch over. So I took the PowerPoint down and I wanted to switch over and just kind of, give you an overview of the different modules in the course and what's actually in them. So you should be seeing my screen. It's sort of the home screen of the course. This is our newest version of the course, RA 101 2019. The course runs so it actually runs for a year. So kind of, what happens is because I know that, a lot of questions that people have sometimes is, well, okay, when does it start and when does it end, and what happens when I have staff that is going to be starting in August, but I'm going to have more staff that's going to start in December, and I've got rehires and things like that. So basically what happens is, we can go into more detail on this later, but you're going to get a set of codes basically when you purchase the course. So you decide how many staff you have, including your admins, to train. You decide how many codes you need. You make a purchase based on that number, and then you receive a code that you distribute to your staff and your admins. And those are basically available for you to use all year. So that would be starting March 1st, so it's already started for 2019 and all going through the middle of February of 2020. So it's just shy about 2 weeks, only because we have to have time to sort of open up the hood on the course and get it ready for the next term. So that's kind of how that works. Just want to make sure and we'll talk a little bit more about the course implementation later. But if you have any specific questions on that, please feel free to ask. So the course is split into basically 4 basic modules. So the first one is the overview, and I don't count that in the 4 modules. So the overview is just, introduction, here's the course, here's how you get assistance, it's got a copyright notice, not to, copy the material, technical requirements, those sorts of things. And then course introduction, so it's an overview of the course. And I'll go ahead and just kind of, I'll move in and out of these pages. And I know I'm going to be doing this rather quickly, but if you feel like you're not, getting the time or the chance to see as much of the content as you want to, don't worry. If you're interested and you would like to have a deeper dive and really take some time to look through the content and the modules, please contact us. We do have a demo available, so we'll be happy to set you up with that. We're able to set up a demo for 1 demo account per site. So let us know about that. So again, if I move into these very quickly, don't worry too much about it. We also have on our web page, a landing site web page for RA 101. There's a video. It's about an 8-minute YouTube video that also sort of takes a walk through the pages and a little more in depth than what you're probably going to be able to see on this webinar today. So this will just kind of give you a basic look and feel for what the course is actually going to look like. So it starts with the course overview, and I'm going to jump back into the modules so we can get into the basic 4 modules. And Spencer, stop.
Yeah. Yep. And as you're seeing Lori go through some of these modules, on our GoToWebinar meeting bar, there is a questions section. And please feel free to type in any questions you have throughout the presentation, and we will answer those at the end. So they're anonymous. If you want them to be, just let us know what your questions are, and we'll get those answered.
Very good. Thanks, Spencer. So the first module is called The World Around Us. This module is basically sets the stage for the course and talks about community and environment and the world around you. The second module is about being an agent of your institution. So this one kind of goes more into ethics and risk and understanding some of those bigger bucket sort of legislative things like Title IX and FERPA and things like that. The third module is about keeping a cool, clear head. So it addresses topics like safety and security, being calm and confident. This gets into incidents reports. There's a number of exercises in there. And we'll go back over this. I'm just giving you an overview of the 4 modules. And then the last module, which I think is just such an important module, it's something that is often overlooked, is self and self-care. So this really addresses, balance between work life as an RA and then a student's academic life. and knowing when you feel overloaded and how to take care of yourself and to sort of how to achieve that balance. And it talks a little bit about some of the pressures that RAs may be faced with when taking this role on. So I'm going to back up a little bit, having gone over that, and just take some time to sort of walk through a little bit into each of the modules. And as you can see, as I'm scrolling through it, this is quite a bit of content, which brings up the point that, how long is this course? That's a question I get a lot. So we always like to say it's 10 hours of online learning contact time, which sounds like a lot. I mean, that really kind of depends on, how fast of a reader is someone, how fast do you absorb content that you're reading? Are you really going in and reading all the articles and the links? Are you doing all of the exercises? And we like to use that because, occasionally, well, more than occasionally, it happens often that I actually assist RAs themselves. They'll reach out to me and, maybe say they're having trouble with a login or something's happened. And then they say, well, how long is this course, going to take me? And I'll say, 10 hours. And I say, oh gosh, it's due tomorrow, So it's not, I guess my point is, it's not the kind of course that one should expect to finish overnight the day before it's due. So you'll get a sense for that as we kind of walk through it. So module 1, the world around us. So this, I'm sorry that formatting is a little weird because I've got it on a different screen and it's scrunching it a little bit, but it shouldn't format like that. And then it talks a little bit about community. So we go into that a little bit. I'm going to try switching screens. Hold on just one second. See if we can get a better display on this. Yes, that's better. Can you see that, Spencer? Does that look all right?
Yep, that looks sharp.
Okay, great, thanks. So I want to make a note about journal assignments, which is what you're seeing on your screen now. So throughout the course, we have a number of reflective assignments that are called journal assignments. And what these are they're often reflective questions. And the original idea of the journal is that we wanted it to be something that there were questions we could ask, they could reflect on, and then it was something that it's almost like a scenario that they could think of or put themselves through, think through a scenario before it actually happens, and then record it in your journal with this response. And so it was kind of almost a way of sort of like, think about it before it happens. Who would I reach out to? What would I do? Those kinds of things. And so the journal was meant to be sort of a reference for that. And so what happens in these journal assignments is that the student would respond to the prompts, and I'm actually viewing this in an admin mode, but there's actually a submit button here where they type the responses in a box. And then when you have admins for the site, they're actually able to go in and read the responses. You don't necessarily have to grade them, but you can if you want to. You can actually mark them complete or make comments on it. A lot of times people just use it as when I say people, I would say, site admins use it as a way to see if my RAs are really going through this and just, in a perfunctory sort of way, or are they really going through it and reading and providing, substantive thoughts and comments on the material that they're absorbing. So you can use it in a variety of different ways, but as we're going through and you're seeing the journal assignments, that's what those are about. I did have a question. Someone said, how much ability is there to modify the course to tailor it to our institution? So at this time, you are not able to modify the course to tailor it to our to your institution. Unfortunately, the content that you're seeing is universal across all, when it's deployed across all organizations. So at this time, we don't have the ability to modify any of the content. So I hope that answers that question. All right, I'm just going to keep kind of moving through a few more screens in this module before I go on to the next one. Here's another one. Actually, the first part of module 1 has quite a few journal assignments. So I'm going to move back into modules. And so this one again, just goes over, location, specific thing, asked to think about your own campus and specific things about it, the building. And there's a few more assignments. There are some discussion activities in here. So what happens here is this is basically just like your any kind of threaded discussion. And I would think that probably most student staff is probably pretty familiar with this type of format where there's a prompt, and then you go in and you hit the reply button, and you just keep a threaded discussion. And the discussions are sort of sectioned off, so they're by your own site. So when your students who are participating in the discussion will only be seeing responses from other RAs that are at their own site. So they won't be, mixing or interacting with students from other organizations. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later when we go into the gradebook, and we can look at discussions and show you how, as an admin, you would monitor discussions. So, so that's a little word on discussions. So I'm going to pop back into modules. Again, I apologize if I'm going too fast. Oh, someone made a comment. That's a really good point. We are using, so Canvas is our learning management system. So yes, and I think that may be a familiar term to many of you, because I know that a lot of sites use Canvas for their own academic courses. I'm not sure to what extent it could be imported into your instance of Canvas. We've never tried that before, but it's something we can look into. So I'm not actually sure how to answer that question, but yes, it definitely is Canvas, which is, I think, kind of a plus, because I think a lot of students are already used to using Canvas. They're familiar and comfortable with it. And of course, every course in Canvas is set up in a slightly different way, but as you can see, ours is very sort of top to bottom, set up with modules. And basically, the way we have it set up is you are meant to click on a page and just keep clicking next and move through the course that way. There isn't a lot of jumping around into these different navigation menus. In fact, in the student view of the course, most of these items on this side are not even available. We want them to just keep hitting next and just move right on through. The only difference in that is when they go to do discussions, they have to go to the discussion tab to access those, because those are assigned to sections, as I mentioned. So, so let's go back to modules. Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and move on to module 2. So being an agent of your institution. So let's go ahead and look at the module overview here. So you can see quite a few learning objectives here. Here's the different lessons that are covered. This talks about what it is to be an agent of the institution. And I'm just going to go through here, and I know I'm talking really fast, sort of a lot, so I'm just going to be quiet for a few minutes and just sort of scroll through some pages so that you can take a look. If something jumps out at me, I'll go ahead and bring it up. There are some activities, and I said I was going to be quiet, and I didn't do a very good job of that, where they actually, so some of them, so I talked about journal assignments, I talked about discussions. There are some activities. We try to put some activities in the course so that at least after every few pages, they've got to pick up their mouse and do something, click something, answer some questions, something like that. So this is an example of sort of like a mix and match activity, where we're asking them just to answer questions about, it's actually it's a pull down type activity, and sort of rank from least acceptable to most acceptable is kind of a fun activity. So those are sprinkled in there as well. And this, before I forget, this reminds me too, there is a final exam at the end, and we'll take a look at that when we get a little bit farther down. But the final exam is sort of what triggers a course completion. So that means that the student has to, well, they have to open every page in the course in order for it to complete. So, do we really know if there's just text on the page, are they actually reading the text on the page? We don't really know, but we know that they've opened the page. They have to at least do that. The final exam it's about 10 questions, and they have to pass it with a 75% or better. They can retake the final exam as many times as they like. They don't see the answers, though. They know they got 1 and 3 wrong, but they don't see the correct answers. They have to go back and find the answers or figure it out, and then take it again until they get it at least a 75% or better. I've had a few folks say that they had gotten a demo of the course and gone through and said, okay, I'm going to take the final exam and see if I can pass it without taking the course. And while I'm sure some people are able to do that, it's not actually that easy to do. I know I actually built the course myself and went to take the final exam and was like, okay, I think I did an answer key, or I'm going to have to go back and look at these. So it's not meant to be tricky or hard. It's just meant to, did you actually read the material? Did you spend time on it? So that's the purpose of that. And we'll see that when we go into the gradebook a little bit later. Although we're looking at the newer version of the course, we don't have a lot of people that have taken the final exam yet. Actually, probably no one, because it's only been open for about a week. But we'll take a look at that a little bit later. So I'm just going to continue scrolling here. More journal assignments. There's some videos in the course. There's readings and resources. All right, I'm going to jump back out into modules. So I hope you're able to get a sense for kind of what that second module is about. So let's move on to the third module. So this one is about cool, clear head. So let's take a look at the overview. So again, these are the lessons: safety and security, incident response, reporting, crisis, making referrals, and then it ends with conflict management. So we can go ahead and take a look at a couple pages in here. Now we have one question that I get pretty often is, so some of the non-US folks that are looking at the course will say, well, you have some things in there that are really not applicable to students outside the US, like, Title IX and FERPA and other things like that. So we have tried to go through and, sort of spell out or designate where those things kind of occur, and just say, hey, this is for U.S. students only, so that students that are outside of the U.S. don't feel like, well, I have to complete this quiz on FERPA, but it doesn't pertain to me. So we've tried to make accommodations for that. All right, I'm going to switch back into modules, and then let's move on to the last module. We can take a look at the final exam too. So this one's about self and self-care. So as I had mentioned earlier, I just think this is actually a very important module. I'm glad it's in this course. So the importance of taking care of yourself, good and bad self-care, and just sort of, creating that balancing act, and just sort of encouraging, RAs to listen to themselves, take care of their mind and their body, and the importance of doing that. So you just scroll through this. I think this is probably one of our shorter modules. Again, sometimes you go through it and you think, well, these things are sort of common sense, but sometimes, when you're in a campus environment, it's easy to lose sight of taking care of oneself. Reminders are always good. It also actually has a number of actually very good resources as well. Discussion activity. Another discussion activity. I believe there's 8 discussion activities altogether. And it ends with having them write a personal mission statement to guide their life, which I think is a really neat way to wrap that module up. So I'm going to then move on to completing the course. Let's take a look at the final exam. We'll just kind of run through it, and you get a feel for what kinds of questions are asked on the final exam. This is the one that I was mentioning before earlier. That was, they have to take it and get a 75% or better to be able to pass the course, and that's what triggers the course to complete. And then that's the conclusion of the course after they take the final exam. So that's kind of just a real quick whirlwind whistle-stop tour of a lot of the content that's in the course. So again, I know I went through that kind of quickly. If you need a deeper dive, please reach out to me and let me know. Spencer and I will put our emails up at the end of the webinar, but before I get to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the administrative functions of the course. So we have the ability to, so when you purchase a tier, I mentioned those earlier, so you decide what tier you want to purchase. You use the coupon code to implement the course. So when you purchase it, I send a very detailed set of instructions out with the code that you distribute to your RA staff, and they sort of activate that code. It's almost like purchasing the course, but not really. It'll be at zero cost. And so you want to be able, when you're figuring that out, make sure that you include enough codes for your admin staff as well. So if you're looking at this and you're saying, well, I have 60 staff that I need to train, but I'm gonna have 8 admins, that's really 68 codes that you're going to need. So please keep that in mind when you're figuring that part of it out. And a little bit later we can go and I'll switch over to the website really quickly. And we'll take a look at that if you haven't already seen it. But you can. So I keep mentioning admins. Or what are admins? What do they do? So you're able to designate some of your professional staff, if you like, to be able to go in and sort of monitor the progress of resident assistants as they go through the course. I'm going to switch over to the gradebook really quickly and just let you take a look at that. Now I'm viewing all sections right now because I'm an admin and I can do that. But when admins go in and they view grades, you can only participate and interact with users from your own section. So only University of St. Louis can see their students' grades, and only those discussions will be restricted to that site. So I just want to make that part clear because I know that's important for a lot of people. So this is your gradebook. So you're going to be able to go through and see across the top here how the journal assignments are listed across 1, 2, 3, all the way over to the end until we get to the final exam, which is the last activity. So once some of these students get a little further in the course, like I said, it's only been open a week, so you see a lot of things that are not quite completed here yet. And this is really your way of tracking how your students are doing. Like, where are they in the course? How far are they? Who's completed it? Who needs a reminder? That sort of thing. And then obviously the scores of the final exam will be listed here, and no one has taken that yet. So you'll also be able to review. I'm not going to pull them up because these are actually student submissions, so I guess that probably wouldn't be fair. But here is where I was mentioning those journal assignments. So this is where someone has submitted an entry to that journal assignment. You'd be able to pull it up, view it, comment on it, mark it complete, and move on to the next student. So this is really kind of a nice handy way for admins in a site to be able to monitor where their student staff is as far as taking this course, and be able to encourage completion and monitor how the journal assignments are going. Like I mentioned earlier, are they racing through the course and just taking the final exam, or are they really taking time and going through and considering all of these journal assignments? So that's just real quick kind of how the gradebook works. I mentioned discussions earlier. So all of the discussions for the course are listed in the tab here, and admins will only see discussions for, so see how I have them, they're split out by sections. So if you're with Brock University, you would only see the discussion for Brock University. And as you can see, there is a little bit of discussion. Actually, no one from Brock has, looks like there isn't a lot of discussions happening quite yet. There's a few in there. You would pull it up and you would see the threaded discussion for just the student staff that's at your site. So that's how discussions works. It's actually pretty neat. I know in years past, if you have had RA 101 before, we had students had to self-enroll and self-assign into discussion groups, but we've removed that and replaced it with this, which I think is much better. So those are kind of just really quick, the basic admin functions of the course and how that works. And I'm just going to pause to see if there are any questions. There's a question, will the webinar be posted for viewing at a later time? Yes, we are recording this webinar. There will be a YouTube link provided. We usually put that out on our website, which I mentioned, and I'm actually going to kind of go to that right now. I mentioned this earlier, that there was a website where, log out of it. There was a website where we have more information about RA 101, and so that information is listed here. And this, so we'll put the link to the webinar on this page, but I believe we also send out in connections and maybe another special email as well, a link to this webinar, but I can also email it out as well after the webinar, just in case you have other colleagues who wanted to join us but weren't able to and wanted to see the information. We'll have that available. And I just wanted to point your attention to this area on the website too. So if you wanted to take a closer look at some of the tiers and how they work and the pricing, that's listed here. We also have some FAQs on the website. So some of these things I've covered already. Some of them I may not have. So those are listed there. This is the webinar also that I mentioned earlier too. That's about an 8-minute video, so it takes a little bit longer to go through, but it gives you a little bit better idea of some of the content. I'll go through a little bit slower than I did today. I'm looking at the content. So there's a question about grading. So in regards to grading, would you grade student responses, or would they be graded by admins from the individual's institution? So if I understand the question correctly, so we, Akuai, would not do any of the grading. We're here to sort of, assist with any technical issues with login or anything that might be happening, but it's really up to the admins for the site to do the grading and sort of the overseeing of the RAs that are taking the course. I hope that answers the question, or that I interpreted that correctly. Someone had asked about credits considered on a campus. So I'm not sure how many credit hours it would be worth. It isn't.
It's about a 10 to 12 hour course, I'd say, in terms of completion time as a whole. It's really how you use the course content and then bring it together with a group of students. So some key implementation pieces you could consider with a course like this. We've seen institutions purchase RA1 for RA101 as a training mechanism, and then have their new hires go through that in the spring. We've also seen, and when I use spring, I am using US-centric kind of seasonal terms, and I apologize for that. I think it's just easiest for audience understanding. We'll have institutions use it as a spring training for people who are just hired, and then they go off for the summer, and then they come back to RA training with kind of a foundation built under them. We have other institutions that will use this as a supplementation to their RA training in the fall before the school year starts. And this is a way to help your larger groups of students not be doing trainings in a group all together in a large room. As we've seen the costs of staff trainings go up, how much it might cost to actually get all of your student staff and all of your professional staff in a room for a training. And because of that, that's why these topics were chosen for RA 101. They're universal topics that can really fit into nearly any department's training, allowing for these topics to be covered, and then the staff on that campus to train specifically for things that are campus specific, things that a student needs to hear from the staff member at the institution. But in the case of any type of facilitation, whether it's online or in person, the importance of facilitation is the processing. How are you taking staff time to process through what was covered? Whether those are the hall directors that are supervising student staff or the students as a group coming together, how is it being processed? It's more than just they do the homework assignment. Okay, great, it was submitted, awesome. Like, you're going to want to read it, you're going to want to grade it, provide feedback, talk about it as a staff, talk about it as a small group. So again, to go back to that question about credits, it's really how much you're going to build in to the online and then the processing in person to take up more time, to devote more time to it.
Yep, that makes sense, Spencer. Thanks for that context and perspective. Sometimes I get a little too caught up in how things work. Uh, and Spencer is really great at helping out with more perspective and intention of the course and how it might be used. So I appreciate that. Is there anything that I did not cover, Spencer, that you think I ought to have before we wrap up?
No, I think, again, the demo is very helpful. If this is something that's really interesting to you and your campus, and this is a resource that would be helpful both in streamlining some of your training, having the ability to get outside of the large classroom settings or whatnot to be able to do this. Definitely, as we follow up after this webinar, ask for a demo. Go through it with other people. If you're on a staff training committee, or you are the person who oversees staff training, it's most likely why you're in this webinar today. So kind of that next step, take a demo, be able to go through it, feel it yourself, and then what you need, whatever you need on your end to whether request for funding for it or who you need to get to also see that. Lori and I are happy to work with campuses to make this work for you. Something that I don't believe we touched on, so this year we're offering RA 101, and certainly for our campuses that are doing RA 101 for the first time, you'd have your whole staff go through it. And our intention currently in creation is RA 201, so a year from now, we will have RA 201 available, so a campus could have an online course for their first year staff members, and then also course content for their returning staff members. So I think that would be a great help to those staff members who are looking for a different experience or who have already gone through this once. But that is in development as well.
Yep, good point. Thanks for mentioning that, Spencer. Well, I haven't got any other questions in, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today. So I hope this was helpful to you all, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you have additional questions, certainly email us. Our emails are on the screen, I believe.
Sure. And one other thing I'd chime in with in terms of the seats. So the way that RA 101 is registered for by an institution, it's based on your staff member size, and we give you a pool of basically seat entries into the online course. And let's say you have 100 staff members and you receive 120 seats, and you've got those extra 20 seats. Those you can kind of keep in your back pocket. It's like a coupon that doesn't expire for a year. So you can use your codes to give access to your current staff, but then if you have a food in your back pocket, unfortunately, student staff turnover happens. So this is another great opportunity that if you do have someone on board after training is completed, or they're a late hire, or however that works, you'll have some of those extra codes in your pool to be able to give to that student, so then they can go and access that. So while there's a small amount of time for a student to go through the entire course, you'll have access to your codes for 365 days. And the other piece is that once a student completes the course, while they're only active in it for so long, they'll always be able to log back in and see the course. Like, they'll have a vision of the course, they just won't be able to go through the activities. Their ability to go through the activities, we've got that shorter window for them to go through that.
Right, it's 8 weeks.
Yes.
Right, so if a student, once they activate that coupon code, they have 8 weeks from that time to finish it.
Yeah, we did have a question come in. Have we seen any institutions completely replace their traditional training with this course? We have not. I think we've seen campuses cut down their training dramatically, but there's still specific things to your campus you need to teach them, whether it is what they're doing, what their exact programming model is in their hall, or how they're going to do duty rotation or duty coverage or being on call. All those pieces that are very nuanced, that are very specific to the campus, specific to the hall, those things are still being done in person. But that can be done in a much shorter span of time if you take some of these big picture items and you cover them in an online fashion.
Yes. All right. Well, I look forward to further questions. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for joining us and spending time with us to take a look at this. And Spencer, thank you for your assistance today. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon.